Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a critique of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. No, I'm just kidding. I'm about 2 years too late to make that review, and everyone knows it's god-awful anyway, so what's the point in me telling you again how absolutely terrible that movie is? I'm here to talk to you about a movie which will be better. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. A movie featuring no Skywalkers, but it's called The Rise of Skywalker. I can't believe this has happened to Star Wars. I lost my train of thought. Just cut. I lost my train of thought. I am very sorry about that, but I'm really not. So let's move on, shall we? I'm here to talk to you about The Rise of Skywalker and how it bringing back Palpatine. I'm not going to mince words here, how it destroys everything and how it was a terrible idea, and I hope I never want to watch Star Wars again after this trilogy is done. I used to love Star Wars. It doesn't seem like it, but I used to. I just rewatched all 6 Star Wars movies on DVD. Yes, you heard me right. All 6. 6. And I'm here to talk about how it's going to affect the mythos of Star Wars, how it's going to affect, the Chosen One prophecy, Anakin Skywalker story, the 2 things which were the absolute most controversial parts of the prequel trilogy. So I'm sure this video is going to be so popular with people. And I'm also going to talk about how this movie will affect the bottom line for Disney and their looming bankruptcy. Hail our mouse overlords is what we thought we'd be saying, but then they ruined Star Wars, and now I hope they go down in flames. Alright, to be fair, I'm being a bit hyperbolic. It's probably not going to destroy everything. We'll always have those first 6 good ones and 3 really bad ones. But enough with my intro. First thing I want to talk about is how this movie, bringing back Palpatine, affects Anakin's arc, because I'm going to be honest, a lot of people don't really love Anakin's portrayal in the prequels. It's really just Darth Vader that they like, and they say that Anakin's just a whiny brat, which, to be fair, he is, but it doesn't bother me. I could do another video about that, talking about why I really like the way he's portrayed in the prequels, but just for the sake of this video, I'll let you know I really like how Anakin's portrayed in all 6 movies. I think his entire arc makes sense, which is why it upsets me that bringing Palpatine back sort of undermines his arc. And it should upset you even if you don't like Anakin in the prequels, because it still undermines his arc in the original trilogy, and that arc is solid no matter who you ask. But bringing him, obviously, the first point of this, why it sort of undermines his arc, is easy to understand. Like, it's sort of self-explanatory. He literally dies in episode 6. He sacrifices himself to kill his former master Palpatine, the man who corrupted him to the dark side. And, I mean, that's a great end for him, but if you suddenly say in episode 9, 3 movies later, that Palpatine survived that, then it undermines the weight of that scene. It's basically just Anakin Skywalker, this hero of the Clone Wars, killing himself, and that's it. Because no one else dies. You're basically just watching a man commit suicide. He just doesn't realize it. And, I mean, that really does undermine his arc. It doesn't take away the fact that he saved his son's life from the Emperor. That will always resonate no matter what you put after episode 6, but saying that Palpatine survived that takes away some of the weight. You can't undermine the fact that he saved his son, only that you take away some of the weight of him redeeming himself. That's part of why him redeeming himself is so great, because he redeems himself by killing the man who caused him to need redemption. So it undermines his arc, which, like I said, is self-explanatory. I guess I probably could go into detail a bit more in a longer video. Maybe if I ever actually start doing YouTube full time, I'd do a longer video going in depth about it. But another problem that we run into, just besides undermining Anakin's arc, is it undermines his status as the chosen one. And I realize the chosen one prophecy is kind of controversial among people because it's sort of I know there are some fans that didn't really like the idea that you elevate Darth Vader into this sort of messiah character. I've heard people argue that Darth Vader works better as he's just a good man who fell from grace and then redeemed himself. You don't need to make him super important by making him like the Jesus of the Star Wars universe, which there is some merit to that. I understand why people might not like him being that important of a figure, but I mean, I don't mind it, and this isn't me making an argument saying, I'm okay with it, so you should be. This is me saying, I understand why you might not like it, but that's the canon that's the canon we're going with going forward. It's a canon thing that there is a chosen one, and the first 6 movies did not heavily imply, they confirmed it was Anakin. The first three prequels, there are only 3 prequels. The prequel trilogy were all about implying, it was people asking the question, is he the chosen one? He's got more latent force abilities than any other Jedi in history. He was a virgin birth. He didn't have a father. He was literally conceived by the Force, which is where the Jesus parallel comes in. But there was all this implication. It was heavily foreshadowed. And then in episode 6, you get that confirmation by redeeming himself. He destroys one Sith, Darth Vader, and by killing his master, he kills the other Sith, Darth Sidious. There were only 2 left in the galaxy, at least according to the movies. I know there's expanded universe stuff which says there were other Sith, but going purely by Lucas's movies, which he had the most involvement in, Anakin destroys the last 2 Sith in Return of the Jedi, and so he destroys the Sith, the people who practice the dark side, and so brings balance to the Force, which is another important thing about the prophecy. Some people say that bringing balance to the Force means you have the same number of Jedi and Sith. It's an equal balance of light and dark, but the way Lucas wrote, it seems pretty clear to me. And again, I probably would serve me better to go into a bit more detail on why I think this, but I want to keep this video a bit short since it's my first one, sort of introducing this channel if I want to go forward. But it seems pretty clear to me from the context of the prequels and the originals that George Lucas's idea, especially given the fact that he based the Force off of Buddhism and Christianity, that his idea of the Force is you bring balance to the Force and as a result the galaxy, because the Force binds the galaxy together. You bring balance to those things by eliminating the darkness, which is evil. You get the evil out, so there is only good, which is a Christian concept, which does get mixed in with the more Buddhist aspects of the Force, although I will admit that Buddhism is much more prevalent in the way the Force is portrayed than Christianity. And so all of this gets into Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Obviously, I'm not trying to clickbait you when I put Rise of Skywalker in the title of this video. I am trying to game the system by getting a whole lot of clicks on this once the Rise of Skywalker movie comes out. I'm not going to lie to you about that. I am an opportunist, but I'm not clickbaiting you. And bringing back Palpatine in Rise of Skywalker, you got to ask yourself what's going to happen now, because even if they don't mention the Chosen One prophecy, which the sequel trilogy hasn't, they've sort of been ignoring a lot of things about the prequels. But even though they haven't mentioned it, knowing that this is a concept which exists, just the concept of destroying the Sith and bringing balance to the galaxy. If you say that Palpatine did not die in Return of the Jedi, then whoever takes him out in this movie, at least to me, I assume that indirectly implies that they're the chosen one. So how do you treat Palpatine in this movie? As far as I can tell from leaks that I've seen about the movie, and obviously take leaks with a grain of salt, it seems like Anakin's probably not going to be appearing in this film. He might be. Some leaks suggest that he does, but it seems less and less likely the more sort of things start to leak out from the set that he's going to be in it. So if Anakin's not in it, then that means he's not going to be involved with Palpatine's actual, literal fall in death this time, because this is how it actually happens. Anakin just failed when he did it in Return of the Jedi. But so according to some leaks that have been floating around online. I don't want to get too much into spoilers. And anyway, if these leaks turn out to be true, then this is just me complaining about a movie that never existed, and that's not good PR for me. That's not a way to start off a YouTube channel, but what can you do? But according to some of the leaks that we've seen, and even just going off of sort of, just sort of common sense, you think, who's going to take out the main bad guy of this film? It's probably going to be the protagonist, who is Rey. And the problem I have with Rey taking out Palpatine, I mean, one, obviously, I'd have a problem with anyone besides Anakin taking Palpatine out at this point, because that should be Anakin's kill. That should be Anakin's moment of triumph, and it shouldn't. There's really nothing good you can do to end Palpatine in this 9th movie, because as soon as you bring him back, that's an issue. You should just keep him dead after episode 6, but there's nothing really good you could do. But the best possible outcome would be having Anakin kill him again in episode 9, but it doesn't seem like that's what they're going to do. It seems like it's going to be Rey. And I just wanted to get that out there. I think I'd have a problem with anyone killing Palpatine in this movie who's not Anakin, because it should be Anakin. But a larger problem with the writing behind this is, one, if Rey kills Palpatine, or if anyone, you can just substitute Rey's name out with Finn, Poe, any of these new characters, Leia, Luke. I'd even have a problem with Luke doing it, because it really does need to be Anakin's thing. But I'm going to keep saying Rey, but just in your head, substitute Rey's name for any character whose name is not Anakin. If Rey kills Sidious in this movie, then that means she is the chosen one, and I find that to be staggeringly anticlimactic. If anyone kills Palpatine, that establishes them as the chosen one, because they're the one wiping out the Sith for good now. And I find that to be just very anticlimactic, because like I mentioned before, there was so much setup in the prequels, like them or not, it was set up in the prequels through virgin birth. Anakin has higher force powers, more latent force abilities than any Jedi in history. There was set up there that there is something special about Anakin. There is something that sets him apart from any other Jedi that has ever existed, which is why people believe that he is part of the prophecy. And you can say that was just misdirection, which, one, it wasn't. George Lucas obviously intended for Anakin to be the chosen one, and it's Disney's idea to have someone else be the chosen one. But even just looking at all 9 movies, let's say all 9 movies were written by one person, and it was their intention to imply that Anakin is the chosen one, then subvert those expectations by revealing it's actually someone else. That just feels staggeringly anticlimactic, because the reason we believe that Anakin's the chosen one in the first place is because you had all of that set up. You can't just set things up and then ignore it to try and surprise your audience. That just doesn't work. That doesn't leave us feeling like good that we were surprised. It leaves us feeling sort of deflated, because we came to expect something logically based on prior story things that were established, and now those just fall by the wayside. Also, again, from a writing standpoint, thinking about it from a story's perspective, it just comes off as really kind of staggeringly clunky and disjointed from a writing perspective to think about it as episode 1. Thinking if you look at this story in sequential order, not in order that they were released, episode 1 establishes there is a chosen one prophecy. A Jedi will show up who will destroy the dark side, eradicate it, and bring balance to the Force. You establish that in episode 1, and then spend episodes 1, 2, and 3 building up all of this suspense, implying that it's Anakin, but giving all this like setup and all these implications. And then in episode 6, you finally pay all of that off with the same character, with Anakin. He does bring balance to the Force by eliminating the Sith. And then in episode 9, 3 movies later, you just reveal he wasn't actually the chosen one. It's this new character, Rey, who we haven't implied to be the chosen one at all. We haven't really implied that there's anything special about her. In fact, the message of The Last Jedi was that she's not special. She comes from nowhere. Her family doesn't mean anything. She's not special. She's just a normal person who learned the Force. And it really does, from a writing perspective, it's just weird to have all of that set up that it's Anakin, then pay that off that it is Anakin, and then 3 movies later, just out of nowhere with no foreshadowing, say it wasn't actually Anakin, it was Rey, which is another big problem I have with it because it just doesn't really feel right from a writing perspective. And that's my video about the rise of Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker, who's not in the Rise of Skywalker. There are no Skywalkers in the Rise of Skywalker. If you like the movie when you go to see it, let me know. Drop a comment in the comments section. And let me know what you thought of the video, if you liked it or not. Cool. I haven't thought of a good outro yet. I'll come up with one later. Stay tuned. I'll improve it. I was actually the first choice to voice Darth Vader in the original trilogy, but they passed me up for James Earl Jones because, 1, he's better than me, and also I hadn't been born yet.